Right, today we're going to look at the history brush and what we can do with a simple JPEG and use the history brush and different blending modes. So you'll find your history brush, it's over here, and if you just mouse down on it, you'll see there you get the history brush and the art history brush. Just make sure you get the history brush. We're going to look at blend modes, which are up here. Opacity, you can slide or you can use your keyboard, just tap in 1 to 10, or 1 to 9, sorry. We're going to look at the sky. We're going to use history, which is over here, which is your top thing there. You can see there nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to delete anything just at the moment. Let's just reduce that again, and I'm going to apply some history in normal blend mode. Now nothing's going to happen. I'm just applying history from that previous state, and you can see there we're just working on the background layer. There's no multiple layers in this, it's really just brush work. What happens if we change the blend mode? Well, let's change the blend mode down to multiply. That's going to multiply the pixel value. If I just click that, you'll see what happens there. Yeah, multiplies the value of the pixels in your JPEG file. See, nothing's happened to the background layer, remains the same. We're just using a brush and history. But what can I do with that? Well, once you've applied it, we can go to edit, and we can fade the history brush. Now you can not only fade the history brush, we can change the blend mode. So if we have a look at the opacity first of all, which means we're going to fade the effect of that brush, take it all the way down there, and you can see if we take it down to 0, it disappears. You can roll it up to there, but we can also change the applied blend mode. Now we go to hard light, it's like adding a lazy little S curve in curves. It's going to darken down your darks and lighten up your lights. So we've applied a brush in multiply, but then we've gone into edit and fade and changed the blend mode and the opacity. So there's lots of flexibility in here, and I'm going to take you through now just to show you that again we're doing nothing with the background layer, we're only working with history. So I've got it set on multiply. I'm just going to paint across there in 45%. I'm going to change the blend mode to hard light, and then I'm going to paint over that again. And you can see there what it's doing is darkening down the dark bits and brightening up the brighter bits, so adding contrast really on its basic form. And you can see I'm just dragging the brush across in one easy swoop. Just a reminder that the fade brush only works on the last brush stroke you do. So if you're doing lots of multiple little brush strokes, this kind of thing won't work. You won't be able to fade it, it'll only work on your final brush stroke, which is up there in your history. And we change the soft light, you can see it's a softer effect. Take that down again like that, click OK, and let's look at the other blend modes we can play with. So we're playing with hard light in there, and you see there we can just apply a bit more contrast in there, really darkening those clouds off. Any highlights in there are getting boosted as well. And let's take a snapshot. Now to take a snapshot, you go to the little camera icon down the bottom here, click it, and that will, in the top of your history, bring up a snapshot. Now if you double click on it, of course you can rename it. Now it's up to you if you want to rename it. I'm just going to rename this one history brush 1. You may want to keep them just as a snapshot, because it'll just keep them in order, as many snapshots as you want, and that's another history state that we can use information from. So just remember, your little brush has to be by the side, and that's where you're taking the history from, and the blue bar is where you're putting the history in too. So let's go back to normal again, let's choose that, and we're going to put the history from the first one into the blue highlighters. That's going to soften that down. So you remember we're taking the history, how the pixels were in that image, and you can change things around. You can move the history brush up and down. So we're going to use the history off that state, we're going to put it into screen. Now screen is like pointing, if you had a slide presentation and you pointed the torch, it's going to sort of brighten things up, and this is what screen blend mode is doing here. It's bringing back the detail in your clouds, adding lightness. It's also going to brighten your highlights as well. So if you just want to work on the shadow areas, just make sure your brush is kept within that area, and we can take a snapshot again. This time we're not going to rename it. And you can see there as we work through the different applications of history brush that we've been doing in different blend modes, different opacities, using different states as the history source. Ooh, I know it gets complicated. So what can we do with the colour? Let's use that and I'm going to go into the blend modes, and we're going to look around, and what I'm going to do is to go to soft light, and just change the opacity up here, and I've gone to 100%, and I'm just going to paint in soft light over that area there, and you can see that it's got a bit of a boost of the colours. Remember what we can do, we can go back into edit, fade history brush, and we can change the blend mode, and we can change the opacity as well. So let's just drag down the opacity, take it down and see how we started off, and it's all to taste of course. You can drag as much or as little as you want, and you can play with the blend modes now. So if we had a look and saw what hard light, it's slightly different, slightly harder, as you'd expect from the name of the blending mode, and it gives you that kind of effect. Let's take another snapshot and start up here. This is where we started from, and you can see as we work through with the history brush, applying history in different blend modes, how different we can make our image look. And there's no layer work, this is just using one brush, remembering to use the edit and fade, and also remembering what sort of blend mode you want. So let's have a look here. I'm going to go to normal. I'm just going to drag it down to around about 30%. I'm using my initial image as the history, and I'm going to put some of that history back in there, just in normal blend mode, just to take that contrasty bit down there. So it's the history brush which is there. Make sure it's selected. Your blend modes, lots to play with. Now, after looking at this tutorial, just go and play with lots of blend modes. Remember, it's non-destructive. You can go straight back to your initial import and remove all the history that you've done. Take a snapshot. Take snapshots, use those as history states in which to use your history brush. Thanks for watching. See you next time.